Hello, today we're going to be continuing our discussion about slope. And as you'll recall, slope is a rate of change and it's how we measure the steepness of a line. We call slope a proportional relationship because we're multiplying x by the slope to get y. So because it's multiplicative relationship, we call it proportional. Today we're going to be starting with the equation instead of the graph. So if you're given the equation of a line, there's a couple parts. It always starts with y, or how far up or down we go, or rise or run, or rise. And then it'll be equal to, and whatever number is right after the equal to sign is going to be your slope. So in this case, our slope is equal to 2, okay? And then we're multiplying that by x. So x is our left or right movement. It's our run. So once we have an equation, we don't want to go straight from an equation to a graph. That's a little challenging. Instead, we try to go from the equation directly to a table. So from equation, we go to the table. So I can make my table. I do x and y here, x and y. And now I'm going to use my equation to figure out what y is equal to, what my points are. Okay, so let's give this a try. So right now we have an x, right, and we have y. And we know that y is going to be equal to 2 times whatever x is. Okay, so let's start with, and you can pick any number. I typically start with like a 0. So imagine starting with 0. And whatever we put in for x, and we can pick whatever number we want, I multiply that by 2, or by our slope, in order to get y. So 0 times 2 times our slope is going to give me my y value. And in this case, 0 times 2 is 0. So when x is 0, y is 0. And now I can graph that point on my graph. Okay. Now we can pick numbers above or below 0. In this case, I'm going to show you a couple, so I'm going to show you how to do negatives also. Let's start with -2. If I have -2, again, to get from x to y, it's 2 times x will equal y. So we're multiplying by our slope of 2. -2 times 2 is going to give us -4. All right, -1. And then we do times 2 is going to be equal to -2. Let's try some positive numbers. Let's try +1 and +2. Again, +1 times, you guessed it, 2. We're always multiplying by our slope to get y. So 1 times 2, or our slope, is going to give us our y value of 2. 2 times 2 gives us our y value of 4. So now I can take these and create ordered pairs or graph them. -2, -4. I go from here to the left 2, down 4. It is at a point. -1 to -2. Got myself a point. 0, 0, we already graphed, and then 1 up 2, over 2 up 4. Excellent. So let's continue on and try another problem. So here we've been given the equation, y is equal to 4x. Okay, so we're starting at our equation. And can you identify the slope in this equation? If you said 4, you're right. Our slope is always the number in front of x. It's going to be multiplicative. We're multiplying 4 times x. So m, or our slope, is equal to 4. Now from here, you're going to want to make a table. All right? And from right there, we can make our graph. So we always go from our equation to our table, and then our table to our graph. Kind of makes a little circle. So I'm going to draw my t-chart. Okay. Kind of an ugly t-chart, but you get the idea. All right, and remember that we have y is going to be our rise and x is going to be our run. So we can pick any values we want for x, and then we're going to apply our slope to it in order to get the y value. So I always like to pick easy numbers, makes life simple. Let's pick -1, 0, let's do 2. Okay. So in order to, so for x, what we're doing is you pick your x. You can pick numbers that you'd like for x. And since you get to pick your own numbers, why not make it easy on yourself? Okay? Pick numbers that are easy. Okay? You can think of x as being your input. Right? We're putting a number in for x. Okay? And then we're multiplying it by our slope to get whatever y is, which is going to be our out. It's what we get out. So if we're going to put in something for x, we multiply it by our slope, and that, what our answer is, what we get out of that is our y value. In this case, we're multiplying by slope. Okay, so we've put in some x values. Now let's try multiplying. So each of these are going to need to be multiplied by 4. And I like to write it next to it, but you certainly don't have to. So when each of these is going to be multiplied by 4, and after I do that, what I get out will be my y value. So in goes a -1, I multiply that by 4, out comes a -4, and that is my point. In goes a 0, out comes a 0, because 0 times 4 is 0. In goes a 2, out goes an 8, and now I have points that I can graph on my table. So let's graph it. -1, and then down 4, put me right here. Excellent. So now I have a point. Make my cursor a little harder. Okay, 0, 0. 2, 8. Over 2, up 8. Ooh, pretty steep. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and graph this by connecting the lines. Okay, so I start here and try to put it in a straight line through. Kind of missed a little bit, but this would be our general line. And if we want to, we can check and make sure that our slope is correct. We can check by drawing a triangle, or drawing a slope triangle to check our rise over run. So let's check between these 2 points. To get from here to here, I'm drawing my slope triangle. And you'll notice that I have to rise 1, 2, 3, 4. So my rise is 4, and my run is going to be 1. So my rise over my run is 4 over 1, which simplifies to our slope of 4. That means I know I've done it correctly because I got the same slope as my equation. Let's try another one together. See what happens when we have a fraction. Our slope is 2/3, which is kind of tough because it means that we're going to be multiplying by a fraction. Okay, slope is 2/3. Always identify your slope first. So that tells us what we're multiplying. All right, and remember, when we create our table now, what we're going to be doing is taking our x value, right, and we're going to multiply it by our slope. So times our slope, and that's going to give us our y value. Okay, so let's put in some points for our table. And remember, we can pick points. Now 0 is always a good point to pick because frankly, anything times 0 is 0. So that's kind of a given. Now when I'm picking other points, I want to remember that because I'm multiplying by a fraction, 2/3, it's the same as essentially dividing by 3, right? Because it's like multiplying by 2 and then dividing by 3, multiplying 2/3. So I want to pick numbers where the bottom, where it's a multiple of 3. So I want to pick something that can be easily divided by 3, right? So let's just try 3 really quick, and I'll show you why. So if I do 2/3 times 3, right, I have 3. In order to multiply it by a fraction, right, you can put it over 1. 3 times 2 is equal to 6. And then 1 times 3 is equal to 3. See why I wanted something divisible by 3? Because I end up dividing by 3. 6 divided by 3 is going to give me 2. Okay, so when x is 0, I multiply by 2/3, I get 0 back. When x is 3, I multiply by 2/3, and I end up with 2. Okay, what's the next number that's divisible by 3? If you said 6, you're right. So we have 6, which I can turn any number into a fraction by adding a 1, times 2/3. 6 times 2 is equal to 12. 1 times 3 is equal to 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So when I put in a 6, the number I get out is a 4. Pro tip though, easier way of doing this is just to put it in Desmos. Use your calculator to multiply. I just wanted to show you how it worked. All right, so now that I have a table, I can graph these as points and I'll have a graph. So x is 0, y is 0. That's going to be the point 0, 0. Nice, goes through the center. And remember, every proportional relationship is going to go through the center of the graph. Okay, then over 3 up 2, 3, 2, and 6, 4. 6, all the way up to 4. There we go. 6, 4. Once I've done that, I can draw a line through points, and I've created my graph. And of course, at this point, I can double check to make sure that my slope matches. Okay, so I'm going to pick 2 points, and I'm going to draw my slope triangle. So my slope triangle, I'm just going to pick these 2 points. I'm going to rise 2. So my rise is 2. I went up 2. That side of my triangle is equal to 2. And then I run 3. This side of the triangle has a length of 3. Okay. So rise over run gives me 2/3, which is the same as my slope, right? So my slope is equal to 2/3. Yay! So, from this point, you should be able to try the next one on your own. I'm going to include it in your independent notebook. Refer back to this video if you need help.